again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Lilia able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
Perry in the face, 1-1. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
Happy Hockey Day, everybody. It's the Forever Mighty post-game show. We're back. It's Pat and Eddy on the mics tonight. Unfortunately, Jason couldn't make the show. So, hey, man, it's hockey time. It's Ducks time. Dude, I feel like we haven't done this in a really long time, even though we're busy all summer.
It feels like forever since we've been, to be fair, we've been doing shows, but this is different. This whole setup, the post-game show setup, feels like it's been a while because we had no postseason. We had no playoffs.
So what, like April till October. So that is quite a long time, man. I mean, that's about 6 months, a little less than 6 months, right?
It's good to be back, though. I can't complain. It can't be as bad as last year, right? It feels different.
Well, so last year started off with a win. This year started off with a win. I mean, we're on the same pace. We could have either kind of season right now. We could easily have either kind of season right now.
Last year started with a win. This year started with an. It's the same thing. Same old Ducks.
Exact same thing. Yeah, same
different.
old Ducks. Nah, I got to take my glasses off. I thought I was going to need them. I don't. Great to be back, man. It's nice to celebrate a Ducks victory here in Game 1. They started, at Honda Center tonight. The Dallas Eakins era fires up today, man. We know preseason, whatever, Ducks go 4-1-1, but tonight was the big night. All this stuff in Anaheim, everyone's looking forward to the beginning of what could be. I don't know if you saw the commercials, but they're talking about like retool or rebuild. I don't know if you saw those on Fox Sports, but like that was the heavy theme, and they're very much pitching that this is a retool under a new coach and a younger squad, much younger squad than the Ducks have ever had.
Gotta buy into the hype, right? Like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I don't. I'm not too mad at they got to do that, right? They have to.
No way.
I think I heard probably 10 times that this is the youngest Ducks team in franchise history. But you gotta sell it, right? You gotta make it. It might not be a great year. I think we all agreed it could be a pretty good year for the Ducks. Best case, obviously, is we get into the playoffs. But there's always that chance that things don't go well. So if you're the Ducks, it's early on, first game of the season. You got to try and sell it. You got to try and get people out. I'm sure, from most people we've seen, they're already excited. Just the whole change with the new coach and a lot of young players coming in. But I don't discredit them for trying to sell it.
No, I was pumped, man. I was very pumped going into this game. I haven't had a beer during the week in quite some time, but I made sure I had several tonight watching this game, all pumped as if I was at Honda Center. Only my beers were very, very less expensive than the ones that everyone at Honda Center was paying for sure. But let's get started, man. Let's get into the pregame stuff here. John Gibson makes a start in net. And some guys we thought were injured actually are in the lineup. And there was a lot of injury concern after that last preseason game with Andre Kasha, with Sam Steele, with Brendan Gooley, even John Gibson. All these guys were question marks heading into yesterday and to warm-ups today, but all's well. Everyone's good to go, and the Ducks had a pretty solid starting roster for mostly what we expected.
Yeah, I honestly expected the tough roster decisions to come a little bit later, right? We knew Lundestrom and Comtois and Jones and Steele and all of them were going to be here on opening night because the opening night roster was put out the day before the season started. But there was no really word on if Steele or Kasha were going to play. They were kind of just questionable for tonight's game. And then we find out pretty much just before puck drop that Isac Lundestrom and Maxime Comtois were sent down. So we didn't get the trio of Swedes line. And we didn't get to see Maxime Comtois, which I think a lot of people were a bit disappointed with. We already got Ricky in our chat saying that he's mad that they sent Comtois down. And I think a few people are, but you look at maybe his performance in preseason and compare it to, let's say, Max Jones or Troy Terry or Sam Steele. And not to say that Maxime Comtois had a bad preseason, but I think he would have had to wow some people to get on the roster. And I believe he only had 2 assists in preseason. It wasn't a great preseason from him. And you look at what Jones and Terry and Steele are able to do, especially throughout. They just looked a little bit more fresh, and that probably comes from the fact that they played more in the NHL than Maxime Comtois did last year. So, if anything, I think he was the guy we all kind of expected, right? Like, he needs a little bit more seasoning, and I guess the same goes for Isac Lundestrom when you've got Sam Steele healthy and you've got Ryan Getzlaf and Adam Henrique. Why play him on the 4th line?
And no Nick Delorier tonight. Kind of a shocker,
That's the big
right?
bummer, right?
Very much looking forward to him playing in an Anaheim Duck sweater for sure, but we didn't see him tonight. You got Max Jones, not Maxime Comtois. Sorry there, but I mean it's going to be a rotating thing between those guys. I feel like you're going to see a lot of guys go down, a lot of guys go up throughout the season. This being a young team, and let's just start to make an impact, right? I mean that's what you're really going to see. Maybe the roster get more solidified, but they're really going. I wouldn't be surprised to see Comtois get called up. So I don't think we're going to wait too long to see him. How'd you feel about Silfverberg and Manson wearing the alternates?
Yeah,
I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, Eric Stevens put out an article, I believe it was yesterday or today. He was promoting it a lot today, where he had a Q&A with Dallas Eakins. He asked him that exact question because Silfverberg and Manson have been wearing them during preseason. And Dallas Eakins said that he had about 7 different guys he believed on this team could wear the alternate captains, and they were still trying to make a decision. I would assume that obviously we know the answer now, but Silfverberg and Manson obviously were the favorites, considering they wore them during preseason, and that seems to be the direction they were going. I don't hate it. I think a lot of people are surprised that maybe Cam Fowler didn't get one.
That was my pick.
Josh Manson, I think, I don't want to say it's an obvious one, but I think if you had to pick somebody on this team, I think he is near the top of that list. Silfverberg's a bit surprising, but I think if you want to go one forward, one defenseman, I'm not sure if that's the way they went. Obviously, you don't have to, because Ryan Getzlaf is also the captain of this team. But if that's the way they wanted to go, I think if you had to pick another forward on this team other than Ryan Getzlaf, I think Jakob Silfverberg's a pretty safe choice.
I mean, I was thinking, and this one I don't want to get into a deep dive on leadership. Everyone who's listened to this show for any amount of time knows how I feel about what grit and leadership does on the team. Certainly, there's respect that goes along with it. I just think it needs to be dived into all that much, is all I'm saying. But I think the other guy that I would have thought it would have been, I thought honestly it was going to be Cammy and be Henrique, and then Getz, of course. But
Henrique's interesting.
No. Good to see him go with the younger guys, though. Right,
Yeah.
Good to see him go with the younger core, and I think that's kind of the whole notion here is to move forward on from. We're kind of in that retool mode, moving on from one core to the next. Right, I mean the Ducks are definitely taking that shift right now.
Yeah, and I think I don't think these are set in stone either. I think these, again, Dallas Eakins believes obviously that he has 7 guys who he thinks are leaders in this team. I'm sure Fowler's part of that. I'm sure maybe Adam Henrique is part of that. You could argue Ricardo Keller's in there as well. Hampus Lindholm, right? So I think those are all guys that you would assume are part of that 7, and just because Silfverberg and Manson are wearing the A's, it doesn't mean that those guys aren't still leaders in the dressing room, because I'm sure they are. The decision, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, to have an A on your jersey, it doesn't mean that Silfverberg and Manson are better leaders or going to have to do more work than Cam Fowler or Hampus Lindholm or any other guys we just mentioned. I think it's just a decision they ended up having to make. In the end of the day, you don't want to have the A's rotating between 7 guys. You'd want to have 2 guys who have the entirety of the season that are going to wear it.
Yep. Yeah, I know. You just got to keep the leadership visible, right? You want to make sure that you have the same guys in the room that are trusted with it. So I think it's good choices. Let's hop into tonight's game, man. We got to get started here. We haven't done this, like we said, in quite some time. So if we're a little rusty, I mean, blame Eddy. He's Canadian. But first period gets off. I thought it was a solid period. Mostly some slip-ups here by the Ducks. But
Rusty,
Manson started
right?
off with a nice crushing hit on Clayton Keller, which was nice to see, man. Good to see him get that physicality started. But you have Rusty, very much so, you could say, in this period, which is kind of like the opposite. The Ducks usually come out in an okay first period or a strong one, but always have a really downer second period, and it was kind of flip-flop tonight.
That's a new coach, new times. But yeah, it's nice to see Josh Manson laying the body. It's so simple, right? It's something we've kind of taken for granted because we saw it pretty much every season but last. where Josh Manson was engaged physically. And I get it, it's one game, it's one play so far in the game, but it was a nice tone setter for the first period because it was right in the first couple of minutes of the game, and it showed the change, I guess, right? Like if you wanted to see a change, there was a lot more transition plays, a lot cleaner exits from the zone, so that you could see the transition away from what we saw under Randy Carlyle. But just the confidence for Josh Manson to make that type of play is something we didn't really see last year. He was kind of shy a bit on the physical play, which is something you don't expect from a guy like Josh Manson based on his history before last year. So if that's a sign of things to come, I hope so, because the Ducks could really use a physically engaged Josh Manson for the rest of the year.
No, absolutely. You got to have that physical presence at some point on your team. You can't just have a bunch of guys that are afraid of the body like that. And I mean, Josh Manson's definitely not that guy. Not a lot of chances really in the early going. I felt that, like you said, rusty, slow start, but it's third pairing defenseman time for sure. But Corbinian Holzer, I don't know if you caught that, man, but caught behind the net with an awful backhand right up the middle. Thankfully, the Coyotes couldn't convert on that. Ducks escape a bullet there for sure. That's like the no-no that's been yelled at my daughter since she started playing playing hockey. It's just been that's a tough call for Holzer to make that move for sure.
I'm actually surprised he got in tonight. I thought Michael Del Zotto was going to get in with Jacob Larson. It seems like they wanted to go with the righty so they could have a couple righties in the lineup instead of playing with 5 lefties. They already had Fowler playing with Gooley on his off wing. Then you got to if you throw Del Zotto in there, you've got your bottom 2 pairings are all lefties. So I think matchup wise they wanted to go with Holzer in there for the righty. I don't think you're losing too much by having Holzer over Del Zotto. There's not really a huge difference there, and that's gonna happen. We've seen this from Corbinian Holzer in the past. He's a 7th defenseman, right? So he's gonna be, if he's out there for any considerable amount of time, he's gonna make some mistakes. Luckily for the Ducks, it didn't lead to a goal in this situation, but that's gonna be a problem, I feel like, for this year, and it's going to be a problem that's going to be a little bit glaring throughout the rest of the year when you look at that bottom pairing and how Jacob Larson is kind of going to get anchored a bit by Del Zotto and Holzer. Hopefully Del Zotto can maybe string together a decent season and become a reliable 6, but that's going to be tough for the Ducks because it's kind of reminiscent a bit of when Kevin Bieksa and Francois Beauchemin were guys that were always in as that 6th spot. Not to say Del Zotto and Holzer are the same or worse or better than them, but it kind of has that feeling to it. And the Ducks, I don't know if they're going to address that at the trade deadline. We're a while away from the trade deadline at this point. Josh Mahura is still in the system, so maybe eventually that gets rectified from within rather than going out for a trade. But some worrying signs, I guess you could say, for that bottom pairing.
I mean, I would say worrying signs, if you want to even call anything that, in the first game of the season under a new regime. I mean, just overall defensively, the Ducks didn't look too strong. It's easy to point out the mistakes of Corbinian and Holzer here, as you and I just did, but I mean, the offense was pretty anemic in the first period too. I mean, yes, the Ducks get on the board, which we'll talk about in a second, but they almost went, I think it was 7 minutes with no shots on goal and then 2 softies before they were able to bounce back and get the goal there.
Yeah, it was. It's a back and forth start, and you get 2 teams basically. I think these are probably the 2 worst teams offensively last year, looking a bit rusty. The Coyotes went out and added, I think they said in the broadcast, over 50 goals, 30 plus of those were Phil Kessel, and they added a couple from a few more additions that they had. But I think it's 2 teams trying to figure out who they are early on. In the Coyotes' case, it's trying to fit Phil Kessel in and figuring out where the majority of their offense is going to come, which obviously looks like it's going to be Stepan Keller and Kessel. And for the Ducks, it's just building some chemistry. A lot of new lines, a lot of new look lines, and a completely new system. That the good thing is it's visually obvious that there's a new system in place, which is nice because we came into last year saying, hearing that the Ducks are going to be faster, they're going to play faster, and there was no evidence whatsoever. It was just kind of fluff, and then the Ducks played exactly the same as the season prior to that, almost worse, because they were trying to make something work. So I think that there's obvious growing pains a bit from having Dallas Eakins come in and having some younger players trying to find chemistry, but it's nice to see that the change is evident. Like, we can see it this time. It's not fake.
It's like trying to move. You could see in the breakout, trying to get the breakout going, trying to get the legs moving, and that transition game. They got stuck a couple of times on line changes. They got stuck a couple of times in their own end. But let's get to the positivity here, man. It was a goal here, and it was a very nice play set up, all by Derek Grant. Ducks get stuck in their own end for some time, forcing Gibby to make a couple of big saves. We didn't say that enough the past couple of seasons. Grant makes a great lead pass at the Shore. Shore breaks in on Kemper. Kemper makes the save, sprawling out on the ice. Rebounds is sitting all nice and pretty for Derek Grant, who has a nose for the net. Jumps right in on that puck at the top of the crease and buries it. The number one center, Derek Grant, is the first goal for the Ducks this season, man. It was nice to see that guy get on the board. And honestly, he had a hell of a game tonight. I think he played a really strong game overall.
I think he was one of the Ducks' best forwards, and just he was engaged every time he was on the ice. I think
Devon Shore and Rowney weren't too far behind him either. They all had a solid game, for sure.
Devon Shore had a really good game, too, and especially in that period, he was all over the place. He had a couple more chances alone in that period where he looked like he could put another one to the back of the net. But I thought that original pass from Derek Grant, I thought that was Hampus Lindholm. How nice of a pass that was, a breakout pass. Yeah, wired it right to Devon Shore, who good credit to Shore himself for kind of making that move in behind the defender and being able to receive that pass. That was a hard pass from Derek Grant. He received it perfectly, came in and made a nice move, but your boy Darcy Kemper making some good saves.
That's right. He's the tower of power in the Phoenix net. 6'5" Darcy Kemper.
That guy's massive, and credit to him making the save, but Derek Grant again. When you're on the fourth line, especially on this team, when you've got so much depth, we already talked about Comtois and Lundestrom getting sent down, but you got Nick Deslauriers out of the lineup. You've got still some other players in San Diego like Sherwood and Carrick who could come up and take your job. It's important for a guy like Derek Grant to go out there and make an impact, and he does what he's supposed to do. He crashes the net after making a good pass. He doesn't admire it, and he puts the Ducks up 1-0. So it's nice to see him doing well. He's a fan favorite, obviously.
Yep.
And it's nice to see him get on the board and get a goal because the Ducks are going to need goals from all over the lineup. We've talked about in the offseason how Rickard Rakell has to bounce back and how Silfverberg could have a big year. But if the Ducks are going to make up and move up from the amount of goals they scored last year, it's going to have to be a team effort from every line.
100%. Yeah, you definitely need to have it from everyone up and down the lineup, especially under a new system. You got to get production from everywhere on nights where, like tonight, the big guns didn't really step up, right? I mean, this, like we said, not a big deal. Just didn't happen for him tonight. And luckily they got some depth scoring. And this is the turnovers I was talking about. Getzy with a fumble in the slot, turned it over. Luckily the Yotes couldn't convert. And then just another note to end the period. Ducks turned it over. Gooley off the glass, off Jones, right to the slot to Derek Stepan. I think he rang it off the crossbar over Gibson. So a couple of close calls with the Ducks in the first period. They got outshot 14-6, but ended the period 1-0. They didn't look really dangerous. Turnovers and limited rushes up the ice. But hey, man, they got out on top of the board early in the first period or midway through the first period and held on to that lead.
Big win is they mentioned shot attempts on the broadcast.
Weird.
I don't think I've ever heard that happen before where they brought up shot attempts.
Was on my phone, and I don't know if anyone listening has ever gone to Natural Stat Trick and tried to do it on your phone. It's not real awesome because it's graphs and you got to scroll through it. So I rewound it. I'm like, did they really just say that? What were the shot attempts? I rewound it. I'm like, oh. Attempted 32 to 20 in favor of the Coyotes. I'm like, since when do they start tracking? But the Ducks did recently hire an analyst.
Yeah,
they recently hired an analyst.
I had to go back and check to make sure they were actually right and they weren't just trying to make something up.
Just throwing a broadcast number.
You know what? You know what's funny because they mention it, and I'm happy they mention it, but they still made it sound awkward. They still made it sound like it wasn't right or it wasn't believable that they brought it up on the broadcast. I'm happy they did because it does help explain the game a little bit better. Because if you just looked at it and saw that the Ducks were outshot 14-7, it looks like a nightmare period from then. Even though the shot attempts don't say it was much closer, I think it was a closer period than the shots kind of show. Obviously,
I don't know, man. It was pretty close.
It was close. It wasn't like the Yotes dominated them. I think a lot of their shots
definitely had the majority of the chances.
They did, yeah. But I think a lot of their shots, especially a lot of their shot attempts were from the perimeter. They did have a couple A+ shots, and even Derek Stepan's shot off the crossbar doesn't count as a shot attempt. It doesn't count as a shot on net. But they definitely had the share of chances in this one. But I think it was a bit closer than maybe the shots suggest.
Well, the Ducks get out of that with a 1-0 lead going into the second period. And, I mean, they just get off to a much better start. Physical play starts off. Several chances for the Ducks to begin the second period. Troy Terry, most notably, with a great move, moving in through the offensive zone at the top of the zone, into the slot with a nice toe drag to change the shooting angle, and just misses the net on the release on the rush. Good to see him getting back into the play. He kind of had a quiet night, but every once in a while you got a glimpse of Troy Terry.
Did you see Troy Terry and Max Jones with the top hats before the game tonight? That was
ridiculous.
It was a great choice. They interviewed him and they asked him about the top hat, and he said, or I think the new Ducks analyst was saying it's because he had a haircut. It was a bad haircut, but he said he went out shopping with Max and they couldn't pass up a hat like that. So I thought that was pretty legendary. But yeah, Troy Terry had a bit of a quiet game. But man, if he had made that pay off, if he had a toe dragged around him and actually picked the bottom corner, he just missed too. Like, the broadcast just kind of underplayed that a bit. He just missed the bottom left corner of the net there, and it was a good bit of patience from him. And I'm interested to see how that line kind of progresses with Adam Henrique. Maybe eventually I could see some swaps with Ryan Getzlaf in that line, depending on how things go. But if you go look at the numbers, like the best two lines in the night were the Getzlaf line and the Adam Henrique line, which Troy Terry was a part of. So I don't know. It's one game, right? Like, I don't want to try and overanalyze things right now. It's one game against a team who's a very good defensive team. Like, let's not forget the Coyotes were fifth best defensive team in the league last year. So, 2 goals against a very good goaltender, a very good team defensively. You're not going to have everybody have a great night. You're not going to have, a barn burner like we saw with the Rangers and the Winnipeg Jets tonight.
No.
6-4 finish. So it's a pretty solid game for Troy Terry. If he's not out there making mistakes, I think it's already better than the way he started last year.
Especially for a young player, right? You got to just make sure you're not the guy on the hot seat getting burned up by your coaches. You want to make sure that you're making the right play at the right time. If you're quiet on the score sheet, it's opening night. Happens. But let's talk about the Coyotes' goal, because we have to. Pretty passing play by the Yotes on the rush. Lindholm gets drawn off his man. He was got a little deep on his coverage, watching Keller a bit make his move just to the left of him. It gave Kessel just enough space to get it over to Stepan. Stepan was just a step ahead of Richie, who was reaching. Everything came together for the Yotes on this play. And, Stepan even like fluttered this shot on the one-timer over a stretched Gibson, and now all of a sudden we're tied 1-1. Great play by the Coyotes on the rush, man. Not much you could do with that talent up front like that, making those passes.
Yeah, it's just going to be textbook, I think, for the Coyotes this year, where you're going to see some great plays, and probably 90% of them are going to come from this line. And I can guarantee Derek Stepan's going to love playing with Phil Kessel and Clayton Keller, because they're going to be able to find him the puck. He didn't really have to do much on this play. Not to say he didn't contribute to it, but
just had to drive to the net.
Clayton Keller set up Phil Kessel, and then Kessel set up a nice backhand pass over to Stepan, where he just wired it over Gibson. Not much Gibson can do on that play either, because it's a backdoor pass, but give some credit to the Coyotes, because, again, like I said, they struggled just as much, if not worse, than the Ducks did last year, scoring goals. And this is kind of the line they need to get things done. And up until that point, I think the Ducks did a pretty good job of shutting it down, which is difficult to do when you look at Phil Kessel and Clayton Keller, how great they are and how fast they are on the wings. And Derek Stepan, I don't think gets enough credit for being just a consistent guy who can put up 50 points a season. So that's a tough line to be able to shut down and contain for that long.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, man. And there's not much you could do in that play either. I'm sure our buddy Chris, longtime listener to the show, would love to give me a hard time about Hampus Lindholm not being able to stop that pass. He just loves to rip on me because I'm Lindholm. Lindholm's my boy. But whatever, man. You get beat by great guys sometimes. Just the way it goes. Let me go ahead and shrug that one off. I'm sure I'll get a text from Chris later about it. Steal off the post. Right, you can make the whole joke, steal off the iron. You can make some cheesy line like that. I'm surprised Allers didn't do that, but he didn't in this case.
He's probably thinking about it now. He's waiting for the next time it happens. You can't see that's one you can't use all the time, and you don't throw that out in the season opener. You got to save that for later on.
It's gonna save it. He's gonna put some weird little spin on it so that way it sounds better than the way I said it. But he's for sure gonna say that. Great board work by Rowney and Shore on that play too to free the puck up there. And then Henrique buries Clayton Keller on the sideboards. Keller, obviously, though, was no worse for wear. Gets up, gets behind the defense, has a great rush chance in on John Gibson, but Larson got back to break it up. Lots of contact in the crease against Gibson tonight, huh? It's like the same thing we've seen the past couple of seasons. Guys just like to drive in on the net and give you the poke, see if he's still a little injury prone, as some like to call him.
Oh, man, I don't want to. not this early. If John Gibson goes down,
he's not. He's made of stone this year.
I already had the concerns in preseason when he got hurt, and he was just precautionary that he got left out, and everybody was just worried that he was done for I don't know how long, first whatever time he's out for is going to hurt the Ducks. So hopefully he's fine. He doesn't have to deal with this too much.
He was laughing tonight. He had no problem.
Laughing, yeah. But hopefully Josh Manson and Hampus Lindholm can clear the crease a bit. But as for Clayton Keller, he got buried a few times this game. It's always tough for a guy of his size to compete out there, especially when you've got guys like Josh Manson and Hampus Lindholm on the blue line. You've got some big guys up front. Adam Henrique's not necessarily a big guy, but he's known to throw the body on occasion. And yeah, Clayton Keller was having a tough game trying to find some space out there.
So let's get to the fanciest play of the night, and that's for Cam Fowler. What an unbelievable move, the footwork, the edge work, to get in on the play like that, get around Hinostroza, and being able to roof that as you come in off the point on the pass from Rowney to put the Ducks up 2-1, far side. Unbelievable play by Cam Fowler, man. You go back to, he's always been touted for his skating ability. That right there was, holy hell, that was some great work by Cam Fowler. That's like some of the best stuff I've seen from that guy.
Yeah, it's the best stuff we've seen in a while from him. Because again, we're gonna say this a lot this year, and how a lot of guys didn't have confidence last year, and it's gonna be a complete 180 or 360 from the play for some guys this year, the confidence and the creativity from what we saw last year. But this just seems like a whole new Cam Fowler, and the confidence that he has to even try and pull off that move. I feel like last year, he doesn't try and do that because if he loses the puck in that play, he's getting ripped by Randy Carlyle on the bench, and feels like he doesn't have the support to try and make a play like that. And it kind of feels like this year, players are going out there knowing that they could try things. And Dallas Eakins has already said that he's given the players the freedom on offense to try things. And I think you see that in that Cam Fowler goal, because we know he has the skating. We know he has this in his locker to be able to do this. And that pivot that he puts on Vinny Hinostroza is just unreal. And then not only that, I mean, he doesn't get himself in a great position after that pivot. He's still at I think he starts at the top of the left point and kind of comes in through the circle. Then he cuts it back into the outside, and he uses two of his own players as a screen and just picks a perfect shot into the top right corner over the glove of Darcy Kemper. Like, just the whole play in general.
And when you go far side when you're on your wing, that's a tough shot on a giant goaltender. You already talked about Darcy Kemper being 6'5", and to be able to go far side on him when you're on your own side, that's an incredible shot, incredible play by Cam Fowler, man. That was just a beautiful move. It's so nice to see him being able to do that. He mentioned about playing with confidence, is trying to play confidently. I hope so. I hope this is a real bounce back year for the whole team, especially guys like Cam Fowler who've been ripped on by us. I mean, everyone's had their fair share. He's getting ripped on in the
chat still right now, despite scoring that goal.
Ripped on still?
Yeah.
He was the best defenseman on the ice.
Yeah, I think offensively
Anaheim tonight.
He definitely was.
5-on-5, he was the best defenseman.
Yeah, they're going to need
What do
it.
you want him to do?
They're gonna need him to use his skating positively this year, and a lot of and to be fair, we ripped on him a lot last year for some of the defensive plays that he was making in his own zone, and that were leading to goals. And the one that always comes to mind to me, and I'm sure it does for you, is the Winnipeg OT goal where he just completely lost. I can't remember. I think it was Kyle Connor or somebody out front, but he just completely...
Where he turned away from the net.
Yeah, skated away from the net, and the Jets scored and ended up winning that game. But yeah, I hope it's a turnaround for him. Even if not so much defensively, at least offensively, if he just has a little bit more creativity, and it feels like it just feels a bit more comfortable playing with Brendan Gooley.
Getting ripped on in the chat on opening night. Tough, unbelievable. Man. And he scores the winning goal in the game.
And it was beauty. Like, again, the pivot on that play is what people
shame on you
about.
guys.
But the fact that he was able to cut in back outside and wire that to the top right corner is just as impressive as making that move on Hinostroza.
I yelled in my house. I was like, "What? What just happened?" I was like, "Totally what?"
He made that play with nothing. Like that doesn't happen if Cam Fowler doesn't make that pivot.
No. So they put the Ducks up 2-1. going into the third period. Much better second period by Anaheim, which we could not say all of last year and most of the season before. Going into the third period, were you surprised that Getzlaf didn't play a lot? The broadcast made mention in the beginning of the third period he played a little bit over 8 minutes. Was that a surprise?
I don't want to say I'm surprised, because the difference this year, and it was mentioned a bunch of times on the broadcast and by a lot of people on Twitter too, is it looks like Dallas Eakins is not playing to matchups this year. And I think a lot of what we saw last year is Ryan Getzlaf was put out there against the other team's third line or fourth line, and especially in home games, he was racking up a ton of ice time, but even before the third period, just because it was a matchup system that Randy Carlyle was implementing. Right now, Dallas Eakins is just kind of rolling four lines and not really looking for matchups. He's just throwing whatever line he wants out there, and obviously there's some strategy to it, or more strategy to it than I'm giving credit for, but he's not a matchup coach. And I think you're going to see that in the ice time for some of these players. And I think that's probably a good thing for Ryan Getzlaf. He doesn't need to be playing 18 to 20 minutes a night, especially when you've got the talent on these three lines kind of spread out, right? Like, I don't think you could pick a first line out of those three lines tonight when you've got, Rickard Rakell and Silfverberg on the wings of Sam Steele, but then you've got a center the quality of Getzlaf with Kasha, but then you've got Richie on that line, and then you've got Adam Henrique playing with two young guys in Troy Terry and Max Jones. Like, that's hard to pick out, a 1-2-3 from that. It's almost like three equal lines, and I think that's what Dallas Eakins is trying to go for. And I think you're going to see a little bit less ice time maybe for guys like Ryan Getzlaf, who were getting a ton of it last year.
Well, let's talk about Getzlaf again, because we have our first Allerism of the season, and it was he picked off a pizza, whatever that means. I have never heard that before in my entire life.
What was he
but that was a
referring
reference to Ryan Getzlaf with a huge intercept in the slot on one of the few turnovers the Coyotes had in their own zone. The broadcast even mentioned that. I mean, they've been tracking turnovers and stats a lot tonight. I was very impressed. But Getzlaf misses the shot on Kemper because he's a giant. I think he just grazed the outside of the post on that play, but Aller says he picked off a pizza.
That's a
I have
one.
no clue.
I think he's been writing
what
these down
he's talking about
in the offseason. He's got a whole
think
list
he
of them.
has. I mean, what does he say? Like making
a Sam Steele one in there. He's got a Sam Steele one in there with the post, and I feel like he's just saving it. He had probably picked off a pizza at the top of the list, and Sam Steele hitting the post was right under that.
What do you think the Sam Steele one's going to be? Is he going to say, like, steel is not as strong as iron? Is he going to, like, say something, or tonight like steel is not as strong as iron? He's going to come across and say something ridiculous.
Like that. It's a metal
joke.
It's a metal pun. 100% it's a metal pun. You know it's coming.
Or
he's going to do, like, a Superman Man of Steel one or something like that. That's... it's coming. It's definitely coming.
Well, shout out to Joseph Roba, who's been a follower of us too. He made sure he tagged us in that on Twitter. I had heard it and I was laughing in my living room. I got to retweet that because that was a goodie. But picked off a pizza. It's a new one. I'm going to try to bring that back wherever that was from. I'll start saying that in day-to-day life and see if anyone understands what I'm saying.
That's from the mind of John Allers, and that's it. I don't think that's ever been said anywhere else ever.
So it was funny in our notes. I wrote down how was there no penalties in this game? And then literally a minute and a half later, Carl Soderberg gets a call for goaltender interference against John Gibson. So Ducks go to the power play, and it was awful. I don't know if you saw it. It was awful. They didn't get anything going on the first power play unit or the second power play unit. Whatever. First power play of the season, first power play of the game. No big deal. And then Rowney takes down Clayton Keller. Their power play was also awful. So whatever.
That's expected from these two teams. Right? Like the Ducks,
just the way
the Ducks aren't going to turn their power play around game one. I think it's going to take a lot of work and finding some chemistry, just like the Lions are going to. But these are two teams last year who notoriously struggled on the power play and scoring goals in general. So I am surprised that Arizona didn't look a little bit better when you've got a power play specialist like Phil Kessel in there. Obviously, you've got to kind of work things out and find a system that revolves around Phil Kessel, but they seem like they're a long ways away from utilizing him correctly on the power play.
Yeah, and they're going to have to kind of figure those power plays out, especially because they move guys around, right? And it's just going to take time. I mean, no Getsy on the first power play unit goes to the second power play unit. Hampus Lindholm quarterback in the second power play unit. It's all mixed up. I'm not worried about it.
No, I'm not. I don't think the Ducks power play is going to be great this year. I think it will be better. But I think you just got to find what works, and the Ducks are still struggling to find out who to put on, on half wall, who to put on the point, who to put on the top of the circle, and figure out who's going to be the shooter. Getzlaf, anytime he's out there, he's obviously the facilitator. I think we've argued for a very long time that Getzlaf should be in the Ovechkin spot, shooting the puck. He's probably the best guy to put in that spot. We argued Brandon Montour too before he got traded, but I still don't know why they don't put Getzlaf over there. But there's some work to do, I think, with these two power play units. Yeah, to find out who's best for power play 1, who's best for power play 2, and they have time. Like they have plenty of time, and again, maybe in the future that includes Maxime Comtois if he gets a call up and does well. I think he's a guy that the Ducks eventually would want to have on power play 1 or power play 2, and that's all going to come throughout the rest of the season. And again, like we thinking way in the future. You've got a guy like Trevor Zegras who's still coming up, who you would hope would be a big contributor to the power play as well in the future. So it's a work in progress, and it's going to be a work in progress for a while. This is a very young team, as we already said too, the youngest team in Anaheim Ducks history. So the power play is going to take a bit of work, I think.
Hey man, well, we start off the season with a win. Round of applause for beginning the year with a solid, most of the time solid win for the night. Ducks come away with a victory here, 2-1 over the Arizona Coyotes. I'm going to ask you straight up, man. What were you most impressed with tonight?
I think,
and most and least impressed with. What's the most impressive thing you saw tonight, and the least impressive thing you saw?
I'll start with least.
And you can't say power play.
No, I'll start with least impressive. And I think defensively they were a little bit weaker than I thought they'd be, because they pretty much brought the same guys back from last year. So the chemistry is pretty much already there, and I think a lot of that comes down to just getting used to the new system, the fact that they're allowed to jump in the play more, allowed to have a little more creativity, and when you're just starting out and just trying to learn that and kind of develop on that system, you're going to have errors in your own end, you're going to get caught up ice, you're going to make some bad turnovers, and it's going to get better, but I was disappointed with the way it kind of started and continued to not look too great throughout the rest of the game. They didn't get hurt by it, and they didn't really leave Gibson hung out to dry that many occasions.
Not too much.
No. Step on hitting the crossbar, he was kind of left wide open, and on the goal as well. But it's better. It's better. It could have been better in this game, but I guess that's what I was least impressed with. What I was most impressed with was the fact that that fourth line again. I mean, Derek Grant and Devin Shore. The other lines were pretty good. I did like Getzlaf, Kasha, and Ritchie, and I also did like Henrique, Terry, and Jones as well. Unfortunately, the line I was most excited for, Steele, Rakell, and Silverberg, didn't do that great. It was arguably one of the Ducks' worst lines on the night. But yeah, Derek Grant and Devin Shore, specifically those two, and I don't want to throw Carter Rowney on the bus, but those two looked really, really good tonight. I think they're earning themselves a roster spot. When you look at some of the depth on this team, they're kind of making it difficult to move them out.
Yeah, and you know what, though? It's one of those nights, and I know that all the anti-analytics people are going to laugh at me about this, but it's one of those nights where the fourth line analytically didn't look great, but they're the guys who caught your eye shift after shift and passed the eye test. It was just one of those nights, and they made things happen at the right time, didn't get burned when they didn't, and that's kind of how the story went for that fourth line. For me, if I were to pick something that stood out to me tonight that I was really impressed with, I think I would have to go also, I know it's cheap for me to say that, but also with the fourth line, the play of Cam Fowler offensively really stepped it up. I felt like he had a really good game. Brendan Gooley didn't have as good of a game as Cam Fowler did, but just fine.
He's never going to be the guy necessarily.
He's young.
You notice it, right? Like he made a great play in preseason where he sniped that shot top corner, but that's not.
But even aside from the goal from Cam Fowler looked strong tonight, right?
Just
take away that goal, he still had a strong game.
He looked like he was more free out there to do what he wanted.
And then when it looks at, if you want to pick out a negative thing for me, it would be the Ducks breakout was terrible. Was awful. I feel like they couldn't get a rush out of their own end to save their life most of the time. And when they did, they turned it over, or they'd bobble the pass, or they would lose the puck, or whatever it was. Got in the way of them having it. The breakouts are going to get fixed. It's early, but if I had to pick one negative thing of the night, I would nitpick that for sure.
It's chemistry on the first pass, I think, in that sense. Is just trying to kind of build that chemistry and work out a system here. And I think you saw that with the turnovers. A lot of the turnovers the Ducks had were transitioning from the defense to offense in that first pass, trying to figure out where guys are going to be, and then clearing their own zone where a lot of the turnovers were. And I think that stuff, at least, that over time and over the first 10 to 20 games, that the Ducks are going to iron those kinks out and they're going to get a little bit better at it.
Hey, do we have any questions in chat, or should we go to the questions on Twitter? We have a few on Twitter.
Let's go.
Anybody have any questions in chat? Okay.
Yeah, if you have any questions on chat and I missed them, just throw them back in here, because there's been a lot of early on. There was a lot of Nick Ritchie hate and saying that the Ducks should send Nick Ritchie down and bring up Maxime Comtois, which I'm sure a lot of people are on board for. But here's one. So Samuel Whitwick, he said Michael Del Zotto or Corbinian Holzer. Who would you rather have on that bottom pairing?
I would have to say Del Zotto, honestly. I would have to go towards Del Zotto.
And I'm not a huge fan of Michael Del Zotto either. But we didn't get to see a ton of him last year with the Ducks before he got moved. And we kind of know what Corbinian Holzer's going to have. And it's so... Every time I think of something good to say why Michael Del Zotto should be in, then I start to think of, do I really want 5 left-handed shots on the blue line, because that makes transitioning out of your own zone a little bit more difficult. A lot of guys are going to be on their opposite hand on the backhand trying to make a pass out of their own zone. But maybe Michael Del Zotto's backhand is better than Corbinian Holzer's forehand, so maybe... Don't
you mostly want him on the team because he has a Stanley Cup to his resume? Isn't that why? I figured that's what Canadians like the most. They want rings in the room.
You gotta have that in the locker room.
Yeah, you gotta have rings in the room. That's all you Canadians like.
I wonder if he has it. The Blues got their rings. I wonder if he's.
I don't think he wasn't eligible. They would have to sign for him to be on it. Would you really want one though? Like, he had that whole video, and we talked about this over the summer, I think, on our Patreon shows, where he jumped into the pool of the Stanley Cup at his house, but he didn't play a single Stanley Cup final game.
If I was him, I wouldn't. I don't want to say. You know what?
By all accounts, great guy, funny guy.
Yeah, I was about to say if I was him, I wouldn't want one, but I'm probably lying. If I could get one, I'd probably want one.
Those Blues rings were sick, man.
That's what I'm saying.
I know we're not supposed to talk about teams. Those are sick rings. They're very nice.
Yeah, if I was Michael Del Zotto, I'd want one, but there's a whole other question if he deserves one or not. But who am I to say if he deserves one or not? He didn't play Stanley Cup final game, neither did I. So at least he was part of the team. So.
We got anything else in chat, or you want to go to Twitter?
Lowry in our chat said, "What will it take for Gibby to win the Vezina?"
Oh, Jesus! To get 52 wins, it's got to get 50 wins. Yeah. 50. I mean, these GMs, it's unbelievable to me. He could post a 940 save percentage, I feel like, and let's say he wins 39 games, 40 games. Because they don't overplay him and they give Miller some starts. Let's say he gets rested a couple more times. Let's say he gets God forbid, a minor injury or tweak or something like that. He takes a couple games off, doesn't get that high-end win side of things. That's the only thing. I mean, I tweeted at Sportsnet the other day about it. It's like, who's going to win the Vezina this year? It was like Bishop, Vasilevsky, Tuukka Rask, and whoever else. And I was like, what? Like, really? Really?
Yeah, I think
you guys don't look at the stats? You only look at the names?
Yeah, NHL NBC tweeted out it was something about what are your which one of these 4 goalies has the best chance of winning the Vezina this year, and I believe it was Vasilevsky, Bishop, Freddie Anderson, and I can't remember the 4th guy. Maybe it was Bobrovsky. It might have been Tukes, or it could have been Bobrovsky. But either way, John Gibson didn't make it, and there was actually a lot of people in the comments there saying, how is John Gibson not here? But it's because of wins. And yeah, if John Gibson wants to win this year, needs 35 plus at least in wins to get there, and the numbers, save percentage, goals against average, because that's what they're voting for. They have to be up there. He'll likely be on top of goals saved above average, like he has been for the last couple of seasons, but. He's got a long way to go. If you look at the
45 plus wins, I'm telling you, he's got to have 45 plus wins. He's got to have a 920 plus save percentage, and he's got to have a 2.3 GAA or below, which is a BS stat for goaltenders, by the way.
Brett said that's not being a Duck.
that's a very, 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 very good comment, because it's probably true. That's how you win. What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
That's what it's gonna take.
I hope he just even I don't know. Last year was tough because I think he deserved a nomination no matter what, and he got and not only that, he got one third place vote, and that was it.
They put him in tier 2, the goaltender talk, like we talked about. Like, was it Craig Custance put out that article on Athletic?
Yeah.
He's a tier 2 goalie. Like, get the hell out of here with this.
Do you think, let's say he gets 37 wins, Ducks don't make the playoffs, but let's say his save percentage is north of 920 and his goals against average is south of 2.2. Do you think he still has a chance? If he's either leading or close to leading in those categories,
maybe gets nominated.
Yeah, let's say he ends up finishing 5th or 6th in wins, but he's tied for first or second in goals above or goals against average and save percentage, but the Ducks don't make the playoffs. I know these are all hypotheticals.
If he's sub 40 wins,
everybody's
I think
saying
he's
no
going to have
chance.
a 930. He's going to have a 9.
Well, the question is, do the Ducks have to make the playoffs then for him to win the Vezina?
Yeah, no, I think so for sure.
Because I think, what was the last goalie? Was it Bobrovsky?
Gotta
was
be
the last
winner.
goalie, I think, to win the Vezina and not have his team make the playoffs. I think that's who it was. I don't know if that was with Columbus or not. I believe he only has one Vezinas with Columbus. So
I'd have to check that. I'm not sure entirely.
yeah, and Operation brings up the infamous The Score article, talking about how the Ducks are the most unwatchable team this season. We talked about this on, what was it, our Patreon show? Was that where we talked about it?
Yeah, that was on Sunday. That was our Patreon show. So if you guys don't know, we have a Patreon show. If you listen to the show all the way through to towards the end of this year through the post game, that is a way to support us. Yes, absolutely. But our Patreon, we also give back with several reward tiers, and one of those tiers or a couple of those tiers involve extra shows. We do 3 extra shows a month now is what we're doing now.
Yeah, we try to get 3 extra shows out.
Come on, last month was tough. This month, we were doing 3 extra shows every month during the season for sure.
Yeah,
so.
We got Pucks and Brews, which is everybody's favorite. We got a rant show, which is fun, and then we have a game show called Bobby's Bargain Bin, where you can win signed merchandise from your favorite bargain signings from Bob Murray, like Lucas Spiza and Kevin Bieksa. And James Wisniewski, among others. If we can find
among all the other bargain bin guys.
I don't know if we can find any signed James Wisniewski Ducks merchandise out there, but we'll try. We'll try.
I really want to give away a Danny Heatley something or other.
I know. I want to find that. I feel like it's not out there though. He played one game?
Something stupid. Yeah.
That's the one I need to find. We need to find. If we find a Danny Heatley signed Ducks, that thing's probably expensive though, because he's like a cult legend, and then the fact that he was with the Ducks for literally 2 games, 1 game, half a game, that's gonna be hard stuff.
I mean, there's a Danny Heatley jersey online for $200.
Ducks jersey.
Ducks jersey.
Oh
yeah.
Man. I mean, I could just
we'll have to search around
for cheaper than that. I can just buy a jersey for $50 and get it customized.
So good. All right, want me to go to Twitter?
Ironically enough, the Twitter questions were the questions that we already had. So Tabernac asked what were we most impressed with tonight. Doesn't necessarily have to be the obvious like Grant and Fowler, but we went with the obvious.
I did go with the obvious there. The other guy I thought played a quietly good game was Adam Henrique. I think Adam Henrique had a really solid game tonight. In faceoff circle, he was good. Also, he was up and down the ice defensively too. You didn't see him get caught out of position, and he was involved in some scoring chances there. I think he had a pretty solid game for the Ducks.
Yeah, I think so. One thing I want to talk about, because it was it kind of became a weird thing for I guess a day and a half, is where's Braden Tracy? Because nobody seemed to know he was in limbo.
Elliot Tieford knew.
Well, but no, because I think Elliot Tieford and Eric Stevens both said that he got sent back to Moose Jaw, but that's not true. And Moose Jaw kind of proved that today by saying he's still in Anaheim and he's got an injury. I was kind of thinking it might be an injury because he was listed all the way up into the end. being part of the training camp roster, the one that the Ducks had on their website. He was on the Ducks official roster on their website as well. And then when they released the last cuts, they had only mentioned that Benoit Olivier-Groulx was the only one going back to junior. So nothing mentioned about Braden Tracy. I went and looked. He hadn't played a game for Moose Jaw yet. And nobody knew. And Elliot Teever said he got sent back down a while ago. But then, again, Moose Jaw coming out, I think it was today, saying that he's still in Anaheim with an injury. Makes sense now why he didn't play in preseason at all. I think that was the weird thing because he was part of that roster. I think we saw literally everybody on that roster except Braden Tracy play in preseason. Sucks because I really would have liked to see him play. I don't know where he got injured because he did play in the rookie tournament, and I don't remember seeing him get injured. So they didn't release it whatsoever. But I really wish we would have got to see him play. I thought he was going to sneak his way into the roster somehow without even playing a game. But it sucks for him that he's hurt. It'll be nice to see him back in Moose Jaw. But for a bit there, he was in limbo.
Well, can they excuse me? Can they not send him back because he's injured?
I don't know. I don't know how that works. The Moose Jaw might want him here because he can get better treatment and care here than what a CHL team can offer, right? Like you look at what the Ducks have at their disposal to deal with his injury. It might just be better to leave him here than to send him back to Moose Jaw injured and have to maybe have him sit out for a longer period of time. That would be my guess. Because I think they can send him back no matter what. Like even if he's injured, they can send him back. I believe LA did the same thing with Gabriel Velarde when he had the back injury. They could have sent him back to Kingston, I think it was, but they didn't because the
reasons.
The staff that they have in the NHL is a lot more capable of dealing with something like that than sending him back down to junior hockey. Where not to say they don't have capable, guys, training staff capable of dealing with injuries down in the OHL, but it's obviously the gap in sophistication is a bit different.
That's strange. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if anything pops up about that because I thought I saw Tiefer said Moose Jaw he reported back. They already said that a while ago. Reported a while ago, but. Hey man, who knows where he's at then? He's in limbo somewhere, getting better treatment than he could get elsewhere. So he's in Anaheim, according to Eddy. Eddy knows everything. So
I wanna talk quickly about because there's a lot of Braden Tracy is one of the top Ducks prospects. Trevor Zegras' season's about to start. I want to talk about the goals though because we know Maxime Comtois and Isac Lundestrom have been sent down. Kiefer Sherwood's still down there. Daniel Sprong's down there. Like this is, Antoine Moran's down there, and they brought in some guys. And Josh Maher, I think he's fully healthy, or when he's fully healthy, he's going to be down there as well. Like they're shaping up to be a pretty good team. Hunter Drew is down there as well. So the Gulls are getting a lot of different players coming in. And it's going to be interesting. Like there's a lot of depth for the Ducks to work with. When you think of like Sprong is NHL talent, you would assume so is Kiefer Sherwood and Isac Lundestrom and Maxime Comtois very well could be guys that could be playing in the NHL right now if there was enough space for them. And maybe Antoine Moran surprises some people this year. Like there's no given, and I think in the bottom six for this team when you look at Terry's waiver exempt, Sam Steele's waiver exempt, Max Jones is waiver exempt. Like these are all guys that could be sent down if they struggle. Like not to say that they should not feel safe, but there's a lot of depth for the Ducks this year to work with.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see Daniel Sprong back up in a Ducks uniform there in probably the first 25, 30 games of the season. You're going to see him back up here. They're going to send somebody else down, preferably one of the kids that can't be claimed, and Sprong's going to get back up. I think he's going to go down, and I think he's probably going to tear it up. And as long as the kids aren't tearing it up in Anaheim.
Waivers? If he tears it up and
you don't have to come back through waivers. I don't think the NHL does that. I think when you get sent back down is when you can get plucked. I'm not an expert on these rules, but I thought there was no return. I thought the NHL got rid of the returning waivers. I think you only can get plucked going down. So let's be honest. I mean, Sprong's not an old guy. He's still a young kid. So
22, 23, I think.
Yeah, he's young. He's right around all the rest of these kids' ages. He's he's like a 27-year-old guy. Well, I mean,
I know it's early
guys
in the season, and most teams are just setting their rosters, and there's no point in bringing in a guy. I get it.
I feel like it's an unwritten rule. Like, you just don't claim my guys. We all do it at the same time.
Two guys got claimed. Two guys got claimed out of that. Eric Comrie got claimed from Winnipeg, and that's a pretty decent pickup for Arizona to grab him. He's I don't want to say one of the better young goalies out there, but he had a pretty good year in the AHL. So the guys got claimed. But Josh Hosang, I can understand why teams want to stay away from him because of the attitude issues that he has. I just don't.
I would have picked him up.
Listen, I'm happy Daniel Sprong cleared waivers. I'm just surprised that no team was like, "Oh, we could use that guy." Like people were saying, "Why the hell did Edmonton go after him?" Right?
Well, they didn't need him. Clearly, you saw McDavid last night, right? You don't need Sprong.
Oh, in a goals only fantasy league, I took James Neal just for the fact he's playing with Connor McDavid. I had to. Like you look at that, and I don't want to go into the Oilers too much, but I was watching that game. I was talking to you yesterday, and I was watching Oilers and Vancouver Canucks, and man, they look awful on the wings. Like they have nothing, and like Connor McDavid is running the show there. But I don't feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for Connor McDavid.
It's just the way it goes. Do you got anything else you want to toss in here, man, before we call this show a wrap? Game 1 is done, and Game 2 here's gearing up for Saturday night.
Last thing on the goals, I specifically Maxime Comtois, because I feel like a lot of people are disappointed that he got sent down. We mentioned that earlier. How I guess 2-part question. How well do you think he does in San Diego? Because we only saw a couple games from him in San Diego last year, and how soon do you think before he gets called up?
I think you're going to see him here in the first 10 games, unless Jones lights it up. I think you're going to see him get called up, for sure.
I feel like they give it a little bit more time, but I think he's got potential to be one of the better players in the AHL, and that might be bias. But I think when you look at some of the young players that are moving out of the AHL that were considered the better players in the AHL last year, a lot of them are getting promoted this year, or at least starting the season with the NHL club. And I think Maxime Comtois got potential, especially if he's playing with Isaac Lundestrom or even Moran or Sam Carrick. Like the Ducks have some good center depth down there. He's got the potential to, if he's playing first line minutes for his power play, to tear it up and put up a ton of goals down there. And I hope he does. I really do, because
me too.
I need to see it. A lot of people are high on Maxime Comtois, but we've only really seen him in junior and then a 10-game stint in the NHL. And I don't want to sound negative, but a 10-game stint in the NHL almost means nothing. We've seen.
One thing
that always comes to mind for me, and I don't know if many people are going to remember this guy, but Fabian Brunstrom with the Dallas Stars. His first game, he scored a hat trick. Kind of came out of nowhere. I think he was drafted decently high too, and then he just fizzled out. I'm not going to say Maxime Comtois is going to be that type of guy, because I think Maxime Comtois is going to be an NHLer for a very long time. But you have to take 10 games of NHL experience with a grain of salt a bit. And I'm really excited to see him take that step up in competition and play in a hard league like the AHL, a grinding league like the AHL, because that fits his style. He's a guy who likes to throw the body. So the AHL should be his bread and butter. So if he goes down there and dominates like he did in junior, I'm going to probably place him a bit higher. I think I had him 3 on my top Ducks prospects. A lot of people were saying I should have him up there with Trevor Zegras, but I got to see him. I got to see him.
Got to see consistency out of him, man. And you know what, though? He's going to get back up to the NHL. He's going to get a look this season for sure. I don't know if he's going to dominate, but we got to see what he can do. I mean, every team and every fan base, they overvalue their prospects, especially the ones they draft. They always overvalue them. You always covet them, and we always accuse our GM of that. But the truth of the matter is, every GM does it, just the way it is. You always think your guy's the next this or next that, but like you said, man, he's really got to prove himself to get a roster spot for sure. And clearly he lost out to Max Jones for opening night, but that doesn't mean it's done forever. I'm sure we're going to see him there in the next 10, 15 games.
Yeah, he lost out in a 4-game preseason stint where he didn't look bad, but it
wasn't notable.
Max Jones has 30 plus NHL games on him from last year. I think Maxime Comtois would have had to look a lot better than Jones did for him to win that spot, and I think they both looked pretty much the same in preseason. Maybe Jones played with a little bit more energy, but that's his style of game. But Comtois would have had to look way better for him to beat out Jones or even Terry or Steele, because look at the NHL games those guys played last year. Like, they've got all that experience on top of Maxime Comtois. So, and same goes for Isac Lundestrom as well, playing overseas, and you're gonna have to play Sam Steele, and obviously Getzlaf and Henrique are in the roster above him. So I don't think it's a detriment to Lundestrom or Comtois for getting sent down. It's just those are probably the two guys that I think fans should want to see more AHL time from, and I think the coaching staff wants to see more AHL time for them as well.
Season them a bit. Well, I think that's going to do it for the night. Thank you, everybody, for joining us to kick off the season. Ed, thanks for staying up until 2 a.m. to finish the podcast when you have to get up for work in 3 hours.
No, I'm not going to work. I got a 6-hour drive to Sudbury for a wedding.
Oh, that's even better. Why am I saying thank you for anything?
I'll take that over going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Always take a drive to go to a wedding over going to work. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Twitch. And all of our Patreon supporters, everyone who's playing the Forever Mighty 3 stars, look to Eddy, tweet at him for updates. He gets very busy, but he will take care of you and let you know if you win a jersey at the end of the month. So make sure that you tune in 45 minutes before the start of the game for the questions. Each and every game this season and every month we have a new winner. Thank you to Cool Hockey for sponsoring that. They've been our sponsor here since we started doing it. So shout out to them. Check their site out, coolhockey.com. Go buy a jersey. Use the code FM20 to get 20% off your purchase, and they'll take care of you there with legit jerseys. So that's it for us. Go to our website for updates. Stay tuned to us on Twitter. Our website is forevermighty.com. I'm Patrick, and that's Eddy. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you on Saturday.
See you guys.